The University of Missouri's College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources, or CAFNR, is a national leader in agricultural development. Through numerous programs of distinction, their research improves the health of people, animals, environments, and more, shaping the next generation of ag and natural resource leaders and making discoveries that impact not just our country, but the entire world. I'm Rachael Norden, and in this series of Thinking Out Loud, I sat down with the directors of these programs to shine a light on these unsung heroes of agriculture and bring their research to you. In our second episode of this series, I chat with Dr. David Braun, director of the Interdisciplinary Plant Group, or IPG, here at the University of Missouri, a program dedicated to fostering excellence in plant biology research through scientific collaboration within the IPG, the Missouri Maize Center, and more. Going to be quoting here, established in 1981, the IPG seeks to encourage interdisciplinary collaboration between scientists engaged in a number of research sectors, plant molecular biology, biochemistry, genetics, biotechnology, just to name a few. And the aim of integrating these disciplines is to stimulate joint research projects that will enhance our understanding of how plants grow. Can you explain to me in layman terms exactly what that means and what is sort of the nature, no pun intended, of these projects?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Historically, when the program started, there were faculty who were interested in studying questions in plant biology, but they were scattered across a number of different departments on the campus. So many years ago, we had a lot of smaller departments that sooner or later amalgamated into bigger divisions. So they might have been one or two faculty in agronomy or one or two faculty in horticulture or biochemistry, etc. And so the IPG came together as a way to enable those faculty to understand common research questions, share equipment, co-advise students. And so it grew out of this history of working across what were traditional departmental or college boundaries. And there were, sort of this idea of breaking down silos, that if you worked on a row crop in agronomy, then you wouldn't be interested in a biochemical question. But of course, science doesn't know boundaries. And so the IPG grew up with this idea, and as science has evolved into introducing genetics and plant molecular biology and bringing different questions to bear, the program has grown, but the goal is still to foster those interdisciplinary collaborations, to bring people together to collaborate on a common research question and be able to use really diverse approaches, expertise, techniques, equipment that is scattered across the university. And we want people to work together and to be able to advance science through collaboration. It's really to foster excellence in plant research. That's one of our fundamental goals, is to bring people together from different disciplines, allow them to kind of meet in a research environment, and then find natural collaboration. So somebody has the ability to do a certain analytical technique and they really want to measure something, and somebody else has a whole organism question and they're using a much more physiological approach perhaps. But by collaborating, they really can get at the heart of the problem. And so that's kind of the essence of who we are. And it is quite an attraction for people who are considering careers in plant biology to actually come to the University of Missouri and join the group, because it really brings this network of collaborators and supporters and mentors together that enables everyone's success. And that's not replicated many places. I'm unaware of anywhere else truly nationally that has sort of that spirit of community and the really great energy and support of plant biology.
So also on the About page, it's also cited stating, quote, the overarching theme of the IPG focuses on understanding how plants respond to changing environments, which seems to be mentioned a lot as sort of like a North Star to the mission, if you will. So someone less knowledgeable in these topics, such as myself, may read that and think something like the way plants adapt to changing weather patterns, or perhaps how native plants are interacting and adapting to growing presence of invasive species. So am I on the right track here? In what ways do plants respond to changing environments, and how do all these schools and research groups come together to touch on that concept?
Yeah, you're absolutely on the right path. We think about broadly how plants are interacting with their environment. And so it could be environmental stress, such as drought, or as I mentioned, nutrient deficiencies, or temperature stress, flooding tolerance. All of these are different approaches that people in the IPG are studying to understand mechanistically how the plant is coping with the idea that by understanding that process, we hopefully can improve upon it and make the plants more resilient to the changing environment. And it's just, with 53 different faculty, everyone's working on different components, but the overarching goal does well represent that. That's one of those kind of common denominators for most in the IPG.
Well, backing up just a bit, as we mentioned, IPG was established in 1981. So that would put the work and collaboration that your program has been doing at 44 years strong now, which is a long time. Has the IPG's approach to the work it does changed at all over the decades? What sort of external things influence the work that you do, be it legislative, cultural, environmental, et cetera?
Yeah, science has changed so dramatically in that time period and continues to evolve so rapidly. So the way we approach scientific questions has fundamentally changed. And as I mentioned, collaboration is even more important. And so the types of techniques, the types of questions we could be asking nowadays is so different with the advent of all the genomics and having the genome sequences in most all of our plants, and just the techniques to really get very detailed information about gene expression, or which metabolites are present in a very specific tissue, or understanding more about the hormones and how plants grow and develop. So I'm sure if we could take a little bit of a time travel back to 1981, I don't think the founding members of the IPG would be in any way able to have understood and predicted where we are today. And I'm sure 44 years from now, it'll be light years ahead as well. But I think fundamentally, the culture hasn't changed. It really is trying to bring diverse perspectives onto problems that we share and coming at them from different approaches, but really to advance the science. So I think in some ways things don't change, and in other ways they've changed dramatically. Primarily right now with federal funding is a major driver of all of our research programs. And of course now are somewhat uncertain times with the Trump administration sort of revamping what the priorities are for research and how much the federal allocation is going to be for fundamental science missions such as the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Agriculture. These are primarily the granting agencies that largely support plant biology. There's some also from the National Institutes of Health, but less so. So as federal funding priorities change and allocations change, that directly impinges on our ability to obtain grants that will enable us to pursue the research, whether it's paying for the graduate students and the postdocs and the staff to actually conduct the work, of course paying for all of the reagents to conduct the experiments, all the data analysis that has to happen. These generally are generating vast quantities of data, and so kind of spending the time to work through all that. All of that is really underwritten by appropriations and federal grants. There historically was more support from the state for the IPG. It came out of actually a state appropriation in the early 1980s, 83 or 84, as the Food for the 21st Century program. It was a visionary program that the legislature allocated money to the University of Missouri to really develop the future of agriculture that would benefit the state. And plant biology was identified as one of those four key areas. And that's really what catalyzed the formation of the IPG and brought in resources that really enabled it to grow. So federal and state allocations are fundamental to what we do.
So this is a sort of an adjunct question here. So does the IPG do any collaborative work with programs similar to it nationally or internationally?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have partners that we work with more nationally on the informal mechanism. The Midwest has tremendous expertise in plant biology. Of course, the coast do too, but we have partners at Iowa State, Purdue, Nebraska. And so we kind of informally coordinate and talk. And during the pandemic especially, we would have a virtual seminar series to try to keep the community together and to learn about the science that was going on at other institutions. More formally, we have an outstanding partnership with the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center in St. Louis. It's a world-renowned center in plant biology. And I think it was maybe 2014, former Chancellor Lofton and then current President Jim Carrington at the Danforth came together and established a program to have 4 jointly hired faculty, 2 physically housed at the Danforth in St. Louis, 2 physically housed here at the University of Missouri, with the idea to be bridges to really connect the 2 research communities. And that's been outstanding. We have great partnerships with colleagues there, collaborate on grants, have exchange of ideas and students. So that's been really successful. And then internationally, we have a number of partnerships with different institutions. The University of the Western Cape in South Africa, the University of Missouri has had over a 40-year collaboration or strong relationship and partnership with that institution. And so I think it was 2015, a group of plant biologists traveled to South Africa and started establishing formal relationships and collaborations. And we've had a number of their scientists come to MU and work in labs and participate in our symposium. We also have a very long-standing relationship with, in South Korea, Jinsong University. And so we just had a delegation of IPG members travel there and participate in the symposium a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it's been really fantastic. We've had Korean scientists come here, and we've had students come here and work in labs. We have partnerships with Brazil, the state of Sao Paulo, the federal funding agency, FAPESPA. We have a collaborative agreement to enable transfer or visits of our scientists to go there and their scientists to come here. We've had a number of Brazilian scientists work in IPG labs that have been very, very successful. And then China Agricultural University, that one obviously with things in the pandemic slowed down a little bit, but we've had a number of Chinese visitors, and we have, again, an MOU in place that we can have some of our students go and visit. In pre-pandemic, we did have delegations go and work there and participate in conferences, and reciprocally them come here. So we do have a number of international partners and really strong partnerships as well.
Perusing your website, something stood out to me as outstanding in its inclusion, or rather its distinction, and that's the Missouri Maize Center. It's, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it stated the mission of the Maize Center is to enhance and promote the existing research program in maize biology, fosters research, education, and awareness of maize as a primary vehicle for discovery in plant biology and a value commodity for the state of Missouri. All that to provide context to the question, how exactly does maize or corn, which we know is we know it's a value commodity here in Missouri on many levels, but how does it serve as such a valuable vehicle for biological plant discoveries?
Oh, that's a great question. So maize has been a model organism for more than 100 years for research, and it happens to be that if you're familiar with corn, the ear that we eat is actually sort of mid-height on the plant. And those are going to ultimately result from the female flowers. But at the top of the plant is the tassel, and that is where the pollen will come from. Those are the male flowers, but they are physically separated. And so when one wants to do genetics, we can think back to maybe Punnett squares or pedigrees you may have learned about. And being able to control who the mother is and who the father is fundamentally important to the approach to studying genetics. So corn having those 2 flowers separated physically, male at the top, female mid-height, really enabled pioneering studies in genetics that are much harder to do with other organisms. They're certainly possible, but it's just more tedious. So corn was adopted very early on in the late 19-teens or something as a primary research organism because it was just physically easier to work with and control the pollinations. And the research has blossomed from then. And Missouri has actually had a very long history of pioneering corn research, and many, many pioneers in plant genetics were faculty at the University of Missouri. One of our most famous examples is Barbara McClintock, who eventually went on to win a Nobel Prize for her discoveries, had spent part of her earlier career here at the University of Missouri. And so she was doing fundamental discovery on understanding chromosome biology at that time. And really, maize was a premier system. And so there were many, many examples over century virtually of why corn was so important as a fundamental vehicle for discovery that continues to this day. And I would say also, we also have world-class scientists studying soybean biology, and we also have a soybean center, and they are equally pushing back the frontiers of science by making fundamental discoveries that are really helping us understand questions that apply to soybean. But of course, both studies in maize and studies in soybean, the knowledge we generate applies more broadly. Often we can translate it to related species or sometimes quite diverse species. So we have really outstanding researchers in the IPG. One of the core components of the IPG is we have a great partnership with USDA Agricultural Research Service, ARS scientists who are physically housed at the University of Missouri. And many of them work on corn or soybean. And that corn community also is included in the MMC. And they are, part of the expertise and really the core of helping us have that critical mass and really having that extension to the USDA science.
So what are some other ways that people can support the work that you do?
We do have an endowment that we set up a few years ago. And so if people are able to make any kind of financial contribution on our webpage, there's a small little donate button, and that would help make a contribution, and that would help support the IPG in perpetuity. The idea being that because of the fluctuations in federal and state and other levels of appropriation, we sort of started a crowdfunding source to try to raise a little bit of money, just that will enable us to support our own priorities. It's a small pot of money, but if people were so inclined and wanted to support the fundamental mission, as we grow it, maybe we'd be able to use that funds as small seed grants to promote two faculty who haven't worked together to get a small pot of money that may pay for them to do a primary or preliminary experiment and generate data that they can spin out into a grant to the NSF or something. And so the hope is that this money will be available in perpetuity to support the IPG community in any way that we feel is necessary, with the goal, again, of building community and really promoting collaboration and supporting fundamental plant research.
Well, Dr. Braun, I think that's about what we've got today. Do you have any other final thoughts you'd like to share?
I feel incredibly fortunate to be here at the University of Missouri and part of the IPG and privileged to serve as its director. It's an amazing community. And as I mentioned, in my research training experience, I've not found another place that has a similar spirit and emphasis on support and collaboration and really cutting-edge excellent science. So I think folks should know more about the IPG and recognize what a treasure it is here at the University of Missouri.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for sitting down with me today for this conversation. This was a very illuminating, interesting, and engaging conversation. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for your time.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was Dr. David Braun, director of the Interdisciplinary Plant Group here at the University of Missouri. If you'd like to learn more about the IPG or support their work in plant biology research with a gift to their endowment, visit ipg.missouri.edu. I'm Rachael Norden, and you've been listening to Thinking Out Loud from KBIA 91.3 FM.